Well, how y'all are? It's your old buddy George Jones over here. Uh, I was sitting around the house here and I thought, uh, I'd make me another little video. And this is this would be entitled, "Hey, I got these old shotgun shells." Now, if you saw my last video, uh, I did a little shooting of old shotgun shells, and I thought we'd talk about old shotgun shells and how the design of shotgun ammunition has changed over the last 50 years. When cartridge shotguns first started being developed in the 1860s and early 1870s, most shotgun shells were of the drawn brass cartridge case type, similar to these drawn steel 410 cartridges that you can still get from Russia, and I've seen a few of these in 20 gauge and 12. All of the 12 gauge ones I've seen appear to be copper, but they're actually copper electroplated steel. You can't reload these because you can't resize them because they're steel. But this is basically what a drawn metallic shotgun case would look like back in the day. These don't work well in pumps or automatics at all. Believe me, I've tried it. They just don't feed well. But that's what a drawn metallic shotgun case looks like, regardless of its size. And the technology basically remained the same for almost 100 years, up until the late 1930s. After the First World War, paper shotgun shells came into a vogue, and they became quite common. The paper shotgun shell, yeah, it's made out of paper. It's a very tough paper, but it is in fact paper. This is a Remington 10 gauge. We'll get back to this in a minute. And they loaded paper shotgun shells like this one. You can see that. Get over here close to the camera. Where is the camera? Where is the lens? There it is. This is a 1930s, 40s vintage cutaway of a double-aught buck round. And basically, a double-aught buck round today is made the same way, except in a plastic hull. Deer slugs, we have 3 different types of deer slugs. These are rifled deer slugs. This one is a Remington. That might actually help. This one is a Remington, and it's just a deer slug. It's just a Foster slug. In other words, it's a bullet-shaped, hollow base slug with lands and grooves on the shell, which serve no purpose, none whatsoever. Here's one from the late 1950s. This one's a Winchester, similar to the ones that we fired over at the range the other day. Same basic design, high price, paper, rolled and crimped, rifled Foster style slug, and with lands and grooves on it. Here's a Remington Peters Blues from the 1960s. Foster slug, same basic design, hasn't changed a bit. And here is a Remington reduced recoil police shotgun slug, basically a 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge, loaded for police use, reduced recoil slug. And it's got, if I cut this open and showed it to you right now, you know, it's Foster slug, a rifle deer slug. First thing I'd like to say about rifle deer slugs is they don't rotate in flat. The way rifling works is you have a steel barrel and a softer metal slug that fits in it very tightly, and as the slug rolls out of the end of the barrel, it digs into the lands and grooves, and that forces it to rotate. In the case of a Foster slug, the slug is actually smaller in diameter than the gauge of barrel that's designed for it. A Foster slug will actually, if you dropped just the slug into the barrel of the gun, it would drop through it, unless it was a full choke, which it would stop down there about where the full choke starts. The slug is hollow in the base, and the wad pushes against it and causes the slug to expand slightly. But as far as the lands and grooves on it doing you any good at all, it doesn't. That thing just waddles out of the end of the barrel. And because it's heavy in the front and lighter in the back and is hollow in the back, it creates a negative drag coefficient, and that drag pressure helps hold that slug straight. But it still waddles through the air as it's going down range. There are slugs that are very accurate. I don't have one around here someplace. If I had one around here to show it to you, probably shot them all up the other day. There's a wasp-waisted or hourglass-shaped slug that has a drag coefficient that's positive, and the drag pressure actually, the air pressure on it actually helps hold it straight. There's several slugs that are fairly accurate. And a rifled slug barrel will shoot a rifled or unrifled deer slug efficiently. Getting back to the history of the ammunition, this particular slug is manufactured by Remington. If you can see it, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but the cartridge case is grooved. You can actually hear it. It's grooved, which serves no purpose whatsoever in a modern gun or to a modern shooter. We noticed the old Remington DuPont Nitro Express 10 gauge round, for instance. It's grooved, okay? Now, this paper shell with the grooves in it, that serves a purpose. And the purpose is, back in the day when these shells would get a little wet, or the outside of the cartridge case would get a little wet, the grooves would help it go ahead, and it would help it overcome swelling, and it would go into the chamber anyway, because it was relieved, the swelling was relieved by the shape of these grooves, by these flutes on the cartridge case. Why are they still there in a plastic shotgun shell? They're still there on a plastic shotgun shell because the consumer expects to see it. That groove is a trademark of Remington, and the consumer or the manufacturer expects that the consumer expects to see it. That's the only reason why it survives. The same thing goes for high brass shells. This Winchester shell has extremely high brass on it by modern standards. The brass shell base is starting to disappear. It's starting to disappear for a couple of reasons. One is because it's expensive to manufacture. It takes metal. The other one is it doesn't really need to be there. Eclipse shotgun shells work just fine without it. Chindit shotgun shells made in Europe work just fine without it. The old active shotgun shell didn't have a brass case on it at all. And they worked just fine. Feed, function, eject, so forth, just fine. And it's still there because you, the consumer, you, the shooter, expect to see it. I'll be doing another old shotgun video test firing older shotgun shells again this week. I'll be testing the single shot shotgun 410 that has been moved back to 18 inches and see what its accuracy is once it's been cut off in terms of birdshot, 5-pellet buck, and so forth, deer slug, one thing and another. We'll be shooting the rest of these old paper shotgun shells in 2016. And these tins that came into the store today, or that I was given by a customer today, gave me half a box of these 10 gauge 3-inch Magnum 12 gauge shells. These actually have Remington printed and embossed on the cartridge base. Pretty cool. So, well, these were made probably in the 1930s when tins were pretty common, and we're going to try those. Another thing, if you've got an 8-gauge shotgun, Papaw's got an old 8-gauge blunderbuss laying around there someplace, and you find some ammo for it, that's great. Hey, take it out and try it out. If it goes badly, I know a couple of good orthopedic surgeons that probably help you out, put that shoulder back in shape. Here's something to think about. There's a commonly available. You see a lot of these around floating around, and I bought a few of them the other day over at Kentucky Gun Company. It's an 8-gauge shotgun shell. Do not shoot these in a sporting shotgun. You're going to be in big trouble. This is a 8-gauge perforating round like they use at the steel mill to blow the bottom out of a Bessemer crucible and get the molten steel out of it. It's got a shot load in it, and it will blow that ceramic plug out of that crucible just fine. It'll put your shoulder into next week. No, Daddy-O. No, Daddy-O, we don't shoot those. They're nice to have around for collecting purposes, and you get to look at them. Well, that's about all we're going to talk about for a while. Here's an example of a deer slug right quick before we get out of here, of a slug that's the example that you need to shoot out of a rifle 12 gauge. This is a Remington, forget what they call it, but it is a solid copper turned humongous hollow point, which is fired out of a 12 gauge disintegrating sabot, designed to be shot out of a rifle shotgun barrel. I haven't had a chance to try these yet. I took one of them apart, cut it apart for a hunter safety demonstration. We're going to see how they go. We're going to try them out. They ought to be bam yowie. Just a little update, a little bit more talk about antique shotgun shells and shotgun and shotgunning. All right then, I'll see y'all later. See ya.